so that immediate effect can be achieved. As far as possible, chanting from the lips of non-devotees should be avoided as much as milk touched by the lips of a serpent causes poisonous effect. The word hara is the form of adoration, the energy of the Lord. Both Krishna and Rama are form of addressing directly the Lord, and they mean the highest pleasure eternal. Hara is the supreme pleasure potency of the Lord. This potency, when addressed as Hare, helps us in reaching the supreme Lord. The material energy called as Maya is also one of the multi-potencies of the Lord, as much as we are also marginal potency of the Lord. The living entities are described as superior energy than matter. When the superior energy is in contact with inferior energy, it becomes an incompatible situation. But when the supreme marginal potency is in contact with spiritual potency, Hara, it becomes the happy, normal condition of living entity. The three words, namely Hara, Krishna and Rama, are transcendental seeds of the Mahamantra, and the chanting is spiritual call for the Lord and his internal energy, Hara, for giving protection to the conditioned soul. The chanting is exactly like genuine cry by the child for mother. Mother Hara helps in achieving the grace of the Supreme Father Hari or Krishna, and the Lord reveals himself to such sincere devotees. No other means, therefore, of spiritual realization is as effective in this age as chanting the Mahamantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Side. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunya Bihari. Jaya सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी प्रभुपाद की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, नामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गौ गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Mother, my beloved brothers and sisters, you are welcome to today's class. Can you hear me, please? Mother, are you there?
Hare Krishna, Kusha Prabhu, my obeisances.
Hare Krishna. How are you?
We are
Nice to
wonderful.
see you.
Oh, yes.
How is your health?
Yes, everything is good by Krishna's grace.
Hare Krishna. You are
Will you
welcome.
Thank you so much. Will you be showing the purport of on the screen?
Yeah.
Or okay, good.
Yeah, it's on the screen.
Great.
Yeah, we can start, please. Thank you.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukha karoti vachalam pangoram gayate girim tat yatkripa tamaham mande Shri Guru Dinatarinam Paramanandavadavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Jayapataka Swami Namine Namacharya Padaya Nitai Kripa Pradayine Gaurakata Damadaya Gramatayine. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 8th chapter, text 37. Abhyadhyasnastvam svakrite hita prabho jihasaasi switsuhrido nujivanaha yesham na chanyad bhavata padambujat parayanam rajasuyojitam hasam. Translation. O my Lord, you've executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today, though we are completely dependent on your mercy and have no one else to protect us, now when all kings are at enmity with us? Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Pandavas are most fortunate. because with all good luck, they were entirely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. In the material
Hello. Muda, please unmute your mic, please.
in the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. But in the case of our transcendental relation with the Lord, it is the most fortunate case when we can live completely dependent on Him. The material disease is due to thinking of becoming independent of everything. But the cruel material nature does not allow us to become independent. The false attempt to become independent of the stringent laws of nature is known as material advancement of experimental knowledge. The whole material world is moving on this false attempt of becoming independent of the laws of nature. Beginning from Ravana, who wanted to prepare a direct staircase to the planets of heaven, down to the present age, they are trying to overcome the laws of nature. They are trying now to approach distant planetary systems by electronic mechanical power. But the highest goal of human civilization is to work under the guidance of the Lord and become completely dependent on Him. The highest achievement of perfect civilization is to work with valor, but at the same time depend completely on the Lord. The Pandavas were the ideal executors of this standard of civilization. Undoubtedly, they were completely dependent on the goodwill of Lord Sri Krishna. But they were not idle parasites of the Lord. They were all highly qualified, both on personal character and by physical activities. Still, they always looked for the mercy of the Lord because they knew that every living being is dependent by constitutional position. The perfect life, the perfection of life is therefore to become dependent on the will of the Lord instead of becoming falsely independent in the material world. Those who try to become falsely independent of the Lord are called anatha or without any guardian, whereas those who are completely dependent on the will of the Lord are called sanata or those having someone to protect them. Therefore, we must try to be sanata so that we can always be protected from the unfavorable condition of material existence. By diluting power of the external material nature, we forget that the material condition of life is the most undesirable perplexity. The Bhagavad Gita therefore directs us 7.19 that after many, many births, one fortunate person becomes aware of the fact that Vasudeva is all in all, and that the best way of leading one's life is to surrender unto him completely. That is the sign of a Mahatma. All the members of the Pandava family were Mahatmas in household life. Maharaj Yudhishthir was the head of these Mahatmas, and Queen Kunti Devi was the mother. The lessons of the Bhagavad Gita and all the Puranas, specifically the Bhagavata Purana, are therefore inevitably connected with the history of the Pandava Mahatmas. For them, separation from the Lord was just like the separation of fish from water. Srimati Kunti Devi therefore felt such separation like a thunderbolt, and the whole prayer of the queen is to try to persuade the Lord to stay with them. After the battle of Kurukshetra, although the inimical kings were killed, their sons and grandsons were still there to deal with the Pandavas. It is not only the Pandavas who were put into the condition of enmity, but all of us are always in such a condition. The best way of living is to become completely dependent on the will of the Lord and thereby overcome all difficulties of material existence. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Shri Shri Radha ki jai. Shri Prahlad Nrsimhadev Bhagavan ki jai. Shri Shri Panchatattva ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Madhava ki jai. Shri Mayapur Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Yamuna Mai ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. My obeisance to all the devotees. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhu bevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Thank you so much for coming here today to discuss this beautiful section of Srimad Bhagavatam. We will divide, this is a long purport, there's so many wonderful points. First point I'd like to address is this words of Srila Prabhupada. In the material world, to be dependent on the mercy of someone else is the utmost sign of misfortune. I want to speak a little bit about that. I was reading this purports in these canto, and interestingly, these verses, these philosophy of Krishna consciousness is meant for, advanced devotees. It's meant for those who can understand the struggles of the Pandavas. And I was just thinking, my life, my challenges, they are nothing like the challenges of the Pandavas. In comparison, they are really, really small and insignificant. But in the intensity of emotions that I experience in my challenges in life, it feels like I am the person who is most struggling. And I was thinking, what's the difference, right? Like one example I can give you about this, depending on the mercy of another person. One example in Mahabharata was Bhishma. He was depending on the mercy of Dhritarashtra to provide him wealth or material facility. And his whole life. We are sharing the screen, Kusha Prabhu. Okay.
Don't worry, just go.
Okay, thank you. So the whole life, if we become dependent on somebody financially, we are at the beck and call of that person. And Dhritarashtra was example of how he was controlling Bhishma. Because of Bhishma, they're being dependent. And for us, in the current situation, a lot of us, it can be about emotional dependency. We become emotionally dependent on somebody or on many people. We want to hear that I'm good enough. We want to hear that we are appreciated. We become dependent. We want our spouse or our children or our friends or our mentors to tell us, you're loved. We love you. We're thinking of you. We want to be remembered as nice people. And that's the kind of dependency that makes us very miserable. So I was thinking of this purport, and I was thinking, how is it relevant for us today, here and now? Currently in my own life, I have certain relationship, very loving friends, but sometimes if that friend doesn't get back to me immediately, I'm dependent, right, on the message of this friend. Why this person is not responding right now? We were supposed to meet. Why is this not happening? So this whole material world is this ichcha, dvesha. So the first thing is we become dependent on someone's mercy because we want to be liked. We want to be appreciated. So this need to be validated, the need to hear again and again and again, you are loved, you are beautiful, you are intelligent, is unquenchable thirst. It'll never be fulfilled, no matter how much we hear. And sometimes we want to hear it from that one specific person. We all know that experience. Sometimes that one person we depend, and we give our power. We constantly are thinking, when is this person going to give me that validation? And what Krishna does, he plays with us because he's the naughty blue boy. He's always trying to trick us into becoming dependent on him by giving us material miseries. Because material misery is the only way, as Prabhupada speaks in the purport, when we have difficulty, then we look up to Krishna, right? When everything is going well, we don't. And that's why Prabhupada is saying, although the Pandavas were most fortunate because they had all the good luck, still they were dependent on the mercy of the Lord. See, that's the word for us. Even whether or not, sukha or dukkha means happiness or distress. If we can remember the Lord, that's the success of life. I want to share this beautiful verse from one of our Vaishnava saints. He speaks about this situation about Kauravas and Pandavas, why Pandavas are glorified. ಪಾಂಡವರು ಕೌರವರಿಗೆ ಲೆಕ್ಕವಾಡಿ ಸೋತರಂತೆ ರಾಜ್ಯವನ್ನು ಬಿಡಬೇಕಂತೆ ರಂಗ ವಿಠಲ ಬರಬೇಕಂತೆ ಪೋಪು ಹೋಗೋಣ ಬಾರೋ ರಂಗ ಪೋಪು ಹೋಗೋಣ ಬಾರೋ ಕೃಷ್ಣ. When the Pandavas and the Kauravas, they fought in the battle of dice, you see that fighting, gambling is compared to the living entities. We are gambling away our time with fantasies, material desires, and we are gambling it away. And when Kauravas and Pandavas became enemies in this way, and Pandavas lost the battle of the game of dice, the Pandavas were unfairly sent to the forest, to the exile. And in this whole song, there's a comparison of how the living entities, we gamble away our energy, our time, looking for substitutes in this world. We know, we studied Bhagavad Gita, we are studying Bhagavatam, we're listening to classes, we're seeing devotees who are very exalted and advanced. And still, the mind is looking for substitutes. We want to find the dependency and shelter in our love life. Sometimes we want to find it in our career. We want to find it in other material relationships. We don't want to completely give our lives to Krishna. And what did the Pandavas do? We often think, oh, poor Pandavas, they were exiled, we think like, oh, poor them, they were suffering, they were struggling, they were in the forest with the tree barks and lying under a tree and eating roots and fruits, and they actually deserve to live a life of a prince and princess. That's what we may think, because we may value comfort. But the reality is, Pandavas were actually peaceful. And Kunti Devi's prayer is saying, look, we were all right as long as you were there. We're not really dependent on facilities, we're dependent on your mercy, right? And the fact that Pandavas chose Krishna, Arjuna chose Krishna, whereas Duryodhana chose the army, right? He wanted the whole army. And Arjuna said, I don't care about the army as long as you are there, Krishna. So the choice of whether we're choosing an army or whether we are choosing Krishna is every day in front of us. And for us, the difficulties might not exactly be, say, being sent to the forest, right? It may be we're not really getting the relationship we want, or we're not getting the money that we want, or we're not getting the facility that we want. That's like superficial part of the problem. The real problem for us could be our own addictions. We are attacked by enemies, anarthas of lust and greed and anger and envy. They're attacking us. And when they're attacking us, that's our difficulty. Unlike Prahlad Maharaj, who was thrown down by the mountain, bettadinda katti urulisi, hasuratanna pattadani kalali mettisi, his own very father tried to kill Prahlad Maharaj. I don't think any of our fathers are trying to kill us. Nor do we have a cousin brother who took away or usurped all our property and asked us to go on an exile and be in hiding. Those are not our challenges. Our struggles are, what is our struggle? Our struggles are fighting against the enemies within our own mind, because in Kali Yuga, the enemies are within us. In other yugas, the enemy was in another planet or in another family, but in Kali Yuga, the enemy is within us. And Prabhupada is using the word anatha in the purport. Anatha means orphan. Anatha means somebody who doesn't have anybody to guide them. In India, if you come, you'll see anatha ashramas. You'll see ashrams for orphanage of people who are, there's nobody, no father, no mother. And talking about father and mother, I want to bring up this beautiful point with Pandavas. You know, when Pandavas and Kauravas were sent to Gurukula, when they were very young boys, they both were sent to Gurukula of Dronacharya. And Dronacharya was a very great teacher. And so when both of them went there, they got to learn archery, mace fighting, and wrestling, and they learned all kinds of arts, mystic arts, learning through the mantras. They could hit the arrows, and they learned all sorts of magic skills, magical skills that we cannot even fathom, because in these days, even martial arts schools don't even compare to 0.1% of the skills that Pandavas and Kauravas learned in the Gurukul. Yet, you know what interesting thing? When the Kauravas and Pandavas were learning under Dronacharya, who was a teacher of his own kind, he was a teacher of skills. Dronacharya was not a teacher who was teaching them values. Because when we talk about education, one thing is skills, which is on the superficial level. Below the skills is the values. What kind of values are we taught? And even below that, the foundation of the values is character building. Unfortunately, Dronacharya was not actually a teacher who could give character building. That was not his purpose. He was only there to teach skills. So when both Kauravas and Pandavas went into the Gurukul, they went with a certain character, right? That they were given with from their parents, mother and father. And Pandavas had the culture and the values and the character of Kunti Devi, of Maharaj Pandu. So they entered there with patience, with gratitude, dependence on the Lord. These were the character and the values that they were taught. So they went inside the Gurukul with those values. And Kauravas, Duryodhana and the rest of the brothers, they were poisoned, we can even say, by the character of envy and the value system of selfishness. Everything was about them, everything was about victory, winning the throne, me and mine. Nanu nanna doyamba narakadolage bittu. It's a naraka. Naraka means hell. So they actually had all these poisonous qualities with which they entered the Gurukul. And what happened after the end of the Gurukul, when they came out after the training? They remained the exact same people when it came to character, when it came to value. They did not change at all. They remained the same character. They had the same personalities they had. So what happened is when the Pandavas were sent into exile, they started to work with the values and character they had. They started to get along with each other, and they loved being with each other. Yes, they were living under a tree, but they were actually happy. So my grandmother often tells me, don't ever say, oh, poor Pandavas, because in India, there's always this thing, Antu intu kunti makkal grajjaila. It's a kind of a saying, which is like a proverb. Oh, the Kunti, poor Kunti sons, they never got the kingdom. You know, they kind of like a poor thing, kind of thing, pity thing. But it's actually not really pity, because Duryodhana, he was sitting in the palace, right? That he took, he stole from the Pandavas by cheating them in the dice game. He got everything. He had this super big palace, all the servants, all the women, all jewelry, anything you can even imagine, and what we cannot even imagine. He had all the facilities. And what was his state of mind? Miserable. He was constantly thinking what the Pandavas are doing. Are they forming an army? What are they doing? He went to an extent of going into the forest and trying to show off to the Pandavas. Such level of insecurity. You know, when men become very insecure like Duryodhan, it's really miserable condition. And even in the verge of the war later, I'm kind of fast forwarding now, in the war in Bhagavad Gita, in the first verses you will read, when Duryodhana is speaking, right, there's all this. He has Bhavan Bhishmascha Karnascha Kripascha Samitinjaya Ashwattama Vikarnascha Saumadattis Tataivacha Anye cha Bahava Shura Madarte Tyakta Jivitaha Nana Shastra Praranaha Yunge. So Duryodhana is basically going on blah 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 blah. He's going on flattering. He's going on boasting about Bhishma and Karna and Kripa and Ashwatthama, all these great soldiers who have amazing skills. They have all come here to do what? I mean, look at the level of insecurity and also the level of confusion that Duryodhan has. He's saying they have all come in this battlefield to give up their lives for my. He's saying they're all here to die, right? I mean, that's kind of like it's like a psychopath. He's like a guy who doesn't really want victory for himself. So sometimes we end up in situations where we look at another person's palace. We may be having a hut and we are burning down our hut because somebody else has a palace. So this was the condition of Duryodhan. He kept looking at the Pandavas for the qualities they had, for the values they had, the character they had with which they became Pandavas. Pandavas did not become Pandavas and we're 5,000 years later still glorifying them, not because they built a big palace, not because of their money, it's not because of how many wives they had, it's not because of those things, right? We're talking about the Pandavas because of their qualities of obedience, of patience, of surrender, of devotion. That's why. And Duryodhan, he kept feeling jealous and insecure for something superficial, and he never got it that he was actually envious of the qualities of the Pandavas. So sometimes we may become envious, we may become jealous. No, material world, everybody has problems. My grandfather used to say this. My mom used to often say when she was younger, "Oh, we don't have our own house. This neighbor has their own house. It would be so nice to have our own house. It would be so nice to have more money. We could also have that kind of a car." And my grandfather would say, "So you want their house and their car and also the blood cancer that the man of the house has?" And she was like, "No, no, no, I don't want the negative stuff. I only want the positive." So my grandfather would say, "No, life doesn't work like that. It comes in packages." So sometimes we may look at somebody who may have a better spouse, better car, better home, whatever it is that we want. And we may think, "Oh, why Krishna didn't give that to me?" We may think. But the truth is, they had a specific quality that they developed from previous life, some karma. They worked on it. And as a result, they've got what they've got. So we should not burn down our huts looking at other people's palaces. Because this is what happened to Duryodhan. He was burning down his own life because he could not tolerate seeing Pandavas growing, nourishing, becoming better. And they were becoming better because of the qualities. Now, Narottam Das Thakur, I really would like to share that song with you. Narottam Das Thakur, he speaks about this entanglement that we get into. Sometimes Krishna conscious philosophy is so beautiful, but it's also very advanced. So we think.
Do you want to share screen?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, now you can share screen if you want to share.
So we think of, if only I had this, if only I had that. And we sometimes lack faith because the philosophy is so high. We are told, you shouldn't have lust, you shouldn't have greed, you shouldn't have anger, you shouldn't go after material desires, we shouldn't. And then our mind has needs, right? As children, maybe we had dysfunctional families. We were not really loved by our parents, or we didn't really feel nurtured. So we look for that love all our life. Instead of realizing that Krishna wants me to look for that love in him, and Prabhupada says working hard. Not it's a hard work to surrender to Krishna, because every day, every time my mind is saying, "Oh, why don't we watch this movie? Oh, why don't I go and meet this friend so that the friend will give me attention?" And the intention, the motivation is not Krishna. It becomes me. So it's hard work to hand it over and say, "Actually, I want what Krishna wants. I don't want this relationship, or I don't want this pleasure, or I don't want this addiction." Actually, that's a tricky one. We may not want addiction. I know many devotees who struggle with different kinds of addictions. Some devotees struggle with food addiction. Some devotees struggle with watching movies and binge watching addiction. Some devotees struggle with fantasies or love addiction. Sometimes, again and again, we look for love in this material world, and we go from relationship to relationship, hoping that hole in our heart, which is due to lack of love for Krishna and connection for Krishna, we try to fill that with relationships. Oh, if I love this person and that person will love me, then I will feel complete and whole. And as Prabhupada starts that misfortune is depending on the others. And then when that relationship doesn't work out, we become, we turn around and we say, I don't want this relationship. This relationship caused me so much misery. I'm going to become independent. I will show to this guy or this girl that I'm happy without them. And then we try to do other stupid stuff to try to cover that mistake. And, life goes on and on. So that's all the game of trying to find substitutes. So I want to share this song that really reflects what I'm trying to say with this Narottam Das Thakur song. So I'll just say the meaning so you can actually understand a little bit. This is a beautiful song in Bengali. Ar keno maya jale means why are you again and again choosing to fall into maya jale, means the entanglement, like a network of maya. Oh, living entity. Jiva, Meena. Jiva means the living entity, and Meena means fish, which is compared to the living entity is compared to a fish. And then I'm going to just say that it's a very beautiful meditation. And then we can read the translation, which is below. Ar keno maya jale পড়িতেছ জীবা মিনার কেন মায়া জালে পড়িতেছ জীবা মিনা নাহি জানো বাধা হয়ে রবে তুমি চিরদিনা নাহি জানো বাধা হয়ে রবি তুমি চিরদিনা আর কেন মায়া জালে পড়িতেছ জীবা মিনা আতি তুচ্ছ ভোগা আসে বন্দি হইয়া মায়া পাশে রহিলে বিরক্তা রহিলে বিকৃত ভাবে দণ্ড্য জাত পরাধীনা আর কেন মায়া জলে পড়িতেছ জীবা মিনা এখন বাকাতি বালে কৃষ্ণ প্রেম সিন্ধু জালে ক্রীড়া করিয়ানায়াসে তাকো তুমি কৃষ্ণ দিনা আর কেন মায়া জালে পড়িতেছ জীবা মিনা. Translation. O fish-like soul, why have you fallen into the entangling nets of Maya? You have not understood that being bound by those nets, you will have to remain in this material world for a long, long time. After becoming captive in Maya's snare, due to your desires for insignificant enjoyments, you remain transformed in a spiritually deceased condition, punishable just like a disobedient servant. Now, by the power of devotional service, always remain subservient to Lord Krishna, swimming and frolicking freely in the nectarian ocean of Krishna Prema. Srila Narottam Das Thakur ki jai. So this is the condition of the material soul, the soul in this material world. We are like fish. which is swimming in the ocean, but then we get, and we get trapped because of our attraction to that little piece of food that is put down by the fisher, right? Fisherman puts this little bait, and so we want that, and we grab it, and then finished, right? This is like game over. Game over, another lifetime, try next life. At least in video games you can just play again with a different player name or something. But if we lose this lifetime, we have to come another lifetime, and we've done that pretty much many, many millions of lifetimes. And still somehow we're very fortunate, we still have the human form of body. And it's not easy. One of the things that I found personally in my life that is difficult is self acceptance, forgiveness, compassion. I cannot really be compassionate to others if I'm not compassionate with myself. When we are giving a class or we're preaching to somebody, we will speak always like with a high standard, and we say you're supposed to follow those principles, and you're supposed to go and listen every day, you should chant like this, and you should not do that, you should not do that, a long list of you should not do's. And there's very, very few things that you can actually do to nourish your soul. So what I have found is the biggest maya there is this lack of compassion towards ourselves, because we have these different kinds of addiction. Okay, each of us have something, some maya. For some of us, work is like an alcohol. Maybe we become workaholics because as children we were given a message that unless and until I show that I'm worthy, I'm useful, nobody cares about me, nobody loves me. So we become addicted to working, so that by working, somebody needs me, and that need is my fuel. It's like an addiction. And some of us may have traumatized childhood. We may have had difficulties in our childhood that may have made us feel so much pain. And in order to avoid that pain, we may have, before becoming devotees or something, we may have gotten addicted to alcohol or drugs or whatever. And then we realize, oh, that's not going to fix me. And then we come into Krishna consciousness, and then we may develop subtle addictions, right? It's not exactly the addictions that is like hard things like alcohol and drugs and whatever other addiction, sex addiction or something gross, but then it becomes subtle. Because if we could go after drugs and alcohol and women or men or whatever, that would have been the external addiction. But as devotees, we want to hide, right? We want to show to the world, I'm following all the principles very strictly. I'm actually a very nice devotee. And then only we know inside what kind of a devotee we are. Only we know the struggles, the subtle struggles that we have with our senses, with our mind, with our goals, with our laziness or whatever. We know the struggles. Are you being compassionate with yourself? It's a question to ask yourselves, to check and see how much am I trying to hide all that struggles and put up a mask? Hey, you know what? I'm really a cool devotee. I am a whatever. I'm a brahmachari. I am a grihastha. I am a whatever. We can even have become a sannyasi externally. We can shave our heads and wear kantimala and go with saffron clothes on the street. But inside, what we are actually holding on to may not actually be Krishna or Bhagavatam or holy name. We may be actually holding on to escaping that pain that we have had from childhood or from relationships that did not work. We have that pain, and instead of facing it, we have the holy name and Bhagavatam as the face in the front, but deep inside we're punishing ourselves. So one of the big punishment, according to this purport, Srila Prabhupada speaks about Krishna's will, right? That's the whole point. Some of us may have some subtle addictions, or we may have some subtle struggles and pain because Krishna allowed us to have it. So the first challenge is accepting whatever problem I have and not denying it, not going around telling everybody I know I'm doing fantastic, I'm doing great, but actually I'm having some problem that I'm hiding. So that is not authentic Krishna consciousness. That's not what the Pandavas did. That's not what Arjuna did. Krishna is speaking about mityachara. He's speaking about don't be a pretender. Okay, so we shouldn't be pretenders. We should be authentic and honest with the struggles that we go through. So we can actually take shelter of devotees. We can get help from others. We can explain our problems. We should be careful in who we open up to, but it's a very important lesson, because to be humble doesn't only mean we go and serve physically, we do some service and we are like always, oh, I am very fallen, Prabhu, you are very great. That doesn't make us humble. Humble actually means to recognize the weaknesses that we have, the struggles that we have, accept them, not to curse ourselves, not to beat ourselves, not to punish ourselves. The other day one devotee was telling me he had some specific problem with a particular addiction. He has food addiction and another specific addiction. To be specific, he had like a specific kind of sex addiction. And he was saying, when I took initiation, I told myself, if at all I will ever have that problem with my own self. He was having a particular problem, and he was saying, if I would ever break the regulative principles again, I will kill myself. And that was too much, and he attempted suicide. And then this devotee was sharing how in a devotional community the rules, and sometimes we're so heavy and so hard on ourselves that we don't give ourselves the space to grow, discuss this with other devotees and get out of it. And that's exactly what Pandavas did. They could discuss their weakness amongst each other. Their weaknesses were probably not like what we may face in Kali Yuga, but each of them had their own challenges, they had their own weaknesses, and they were helping each other by being honest, by being open, and being a support to each other. And I guess one of the ways that we can be compassionate with ourselves, it's a two-way street. You see, we can be compassionate with ourselves if we can be compassionate with others, and if we want to be compassionate with others, we need to be compassionate with ourselves. So if some devotee is going through some problem, they had a fall down, okay, or they had divorce or some problem that is painful, they've gone through so much, what are we going to say? What are we going to think? And what are we going to talk amongst devotees? Is it we're trying to do it with compassion, or are we trying to be judgmental? So if we are being judgmental about other people's problem and we take pleasure in somebody's pain, we cannot be compassionate with ourselves. So you see, this is the Krishna conscious understanding. Compassion to see, compassion also means, kindness also means to put ourselves in situations where we can be safe. If we have a specific, say, food addiction, we have to make efforts to stay with people that will help us to get over that, and go and see, why do I have that addiction? How can I overcome that? And instead of just saying, no, I'm a devotee now, I'll just do devotional things, I will not worry about this, and I will not do it, and then you suppress, and then you get too fanatic about principles of doing Krishna conscious activities, that we neglect that suffering side of us, and then it will only come up in the wrong way at the wrong time, and we just completely lose control. So my point here is compassion, acceptance. That's real surrender. It's not about showing that I'm a good devotee. And being a good devotee means facing our challenges. And there's another beautiful bhajan, and it helped me, that song really, couple of bhajans I want to share. Both of that reflects how do we handle when difficulties come. One of them is by Purandara Dasa, is a South Indian Vaishnava saint. He says, Anudina ninna nenedu manavu ninnali nillali. ಅನುದಿನ ನಿನ್ನ ನೆನೆದು ಮನವು ನಿನ್ನಲಿ ನಿಲ್ಲಲಿ. ಸುಖ ದುಃಖ ಲೆಕ್ಕಿಸದೆ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಫಲ ಮುಂದರಿಸೆ, ಸುಖ ದುಃಖ ಲೆಕ್ಕಿಸದೆ ಮುಖ್ಯ ಫಲ ಮುಂದರಿಸೆ, ಮಿಕ್ಕೂತ ಸೊಕ್ಕಿ ಮೋಕ್ಷಕ್ಕೆ ಸಿಕ್ಕದೆ ಮನವು ನಿನ್ನಲಿ ನಿಲ್ಲಲಿ. So every single day, anudina means every day. Every day there will be attack of Maya, of our different anarthas, of our challenges and weaknesses. And again, we may not have Hiranyakashipu in our life, or Ravana in our life, or Duryodhana standing against us in the battlefield, but we do have a Ravana inside our mind. We do have a Hiranyakashipu inside our heart. And that's why when we sing Nashinga prayers, we're asking, Nakham Adbhuta Shringam, Dalita Hiranyakashipu Tanu Bringam. So Nrsimhadev with his beautiful diamond-like nails, he can actually cut open Hiranyakashipu's belly. So similarly, our weaknesses, our addictions can also be torn apart by Nrsimhadev. But we need courage. And what kind of courage? Prabhupada says that in that purport, that Pandavas were not like parasites. It's not that depending on the Lord is something like being a parasite. It's actually, they were very qualified. They did their work. So similarly, we must do our work and depend on the Lord. So it's like a balance, the courage to change the things we can change, and the surrender to accept the things that we cannot change. And of course, the discrimination to know the difference. That's a famous serenity prayer. I love it. And I chant that. I mean, I read the prayer every day. Please, Krishna, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So this can help us to every single day take shelter of Krishna, whether it's sukha or dukkha, whether it's happiness or distress, doesn't matter as long as I can call out Krishna's name. And then Bhikkuta Sokki Mohakke Sikkade Manavu. We may say, from today onwards, I will not go back into that bad habit. I will give up my addictions. From today on, I will be a pure devotee. How many of us, how many times have we done that, right? We get some inspiration when specific class or something and we were fired up. But according to this bhajan, it says we shouldn't wait for that once in a while thing. Every single day we should go to Krishna and accept our powerlessness, how weak I am, how humble I am, and take all the weaknesses we have as a blessing to surrender. As Kunti Devi, when Kunti Devi is speaking of this prayer, right? Just before this, she speaks about in 1:8:25. Vipada santu tatsasya tatra tatra jagadguru bhavato darshanam yatsyat apunar bhavadarshanam. She's asking Krishna, I wish that all those calamities would happen again and again, so that we can see you again and again, Krishna. For seeing you means that there will be no longer births and deaths. So Kunti Devi is asking calamities, let it happen again and again. So will we ask for our addictions to keep coming back again and again? That's not the point. The point is to be humbled by those experiences. Sometimes we think, oh, from today I'll be a pure devotee. Then a few days later, we have a big struggle, big challenge. And then we are humbled. At that time, we look at Krishna and say, you win, Krishna. You win. I'm powerless. You are in control. I'm not. Okay, so that's the mood. Yeah, and you know, when Ashwatthama, this is later you will study about Ashwatthama when he sends the Narayana Astra, and Arjuna becomes like so scared, and then he goes, Krishna Krishna Mahabaho Bhaktanam Abhayankara Tameko Dahyamananam Apavargasi Samsrute. So Arjuna, such a powerful warrior. Nobody, no superhero that we have imagined in any comic books can compare to the 1 iota of strength of Arjuna. And that powerful Arjuna goes to Krishna and says, Krishna, Krishna, Mahabaho. Mahabaho means a big armed. Krishna, please protect me. Please save. You're the only one who can give shelter. Bhaktanam Abhayankara. You are the one who can give fearlessness to the devotees. So, even Arjuna was afraid. So why should we not be afraid? So I guess it's especially difficult for men than women to accept that I'm powerless. I am, humble. I'm weak. I'm nothing in front of Krishna's challenges and whatever he throws at me. Because men tend to want to show I'm very successful. I'm together. Everything, my family life is perfect. My work is perfect and everything. And actually the truth may be the exact opposite. So men sometimes have a harder time. And in the same instance when Arjuna went running to Krishna, and Krishna had only one solution. He said, everybody down, pay obeisances to the Astra. Everybody pay obeisances, everybody get down. You've seen in all these action movies, right? The villain comes and the gun is there, and sometimes you don't have a gun. What are you going to do? Bend down, go hide behind a pillar, get down somewhere, right? That's what you do. That's like a practical thing to do. That's like a wise thing to do. So Krishna just said, everybody get down. And what happened? There was one person who didn't want to get down, right? It's like a representation of male energy, masculine energy at times, don't want to give up. So that was Bhima. Bhima said, I'm not getting down. I'm a Kshatriya and I'm not going to bow down my head to some astra by this Ashwatthama. And Krishna said, you're going to regret. But you know what? You just better do it anyway. And it was very hard to convince Bhima to do it, because Bhima wanted to face that weapon. And Arjuna had to convince him with logic, with love. And he said, the only way to defeat this astra is by surrendering, by bowing down. And you're not bowing down to Ashwatthama. You're only paying respects to Brahma. You're only paying respects to, the mystical potency behind. And Bhima with great hesitation and Arjuna pulling him down. Come on, get down. Don't be a fatalistic, apocalyptic, not apocalyptic, like a stupid hero giving your life for nothing. So similarly, sometimes we are like that. We think, like Krishna's, Prabhupada is speaking of this in the purport, we think that I can become independent. We think that I've got it. I can fix my situation, right? We have a problem with the wife or the husband or with a friend. We think, I know how to make this right. No, we don't. Krishna knows. We think, if only I had this house, if I moved here, if I went to India, my life will be perfect. No, it won't. Krishna knows what is good for us. So Krishna gives us what we need and not always what we want. And the greatness of Pandavas was they were able to accept whatever was sent their way by taking shelter of Krishna. So the conclusion is accepting our powerlessness. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in the song Gopinath, he says that, Mama nivedana shuno Vishai durjana sada kamarata kichu nahi mora guna Gopinath. Hey Gopinath, please listen to my prayer. I have no good qualities. And I'm only filled with so many negative qualities and addictions and weaknesses. If we don't recognize that I have weakness, we will never be able to overcome that. So the point is, whether it's happiness or distress, handing it over to Krishna. Thank you, Krishna, for this opportunity to grow. Thank you, Krishna, for this lesson. And to have that faith. They say, in the mundane world, instead of giving a man one day's food, teach him how to, they say how to fish, but we wouldn't say that as devotees. We would say, teach him how to fend for himself so he can make his living. So the point is, we need to recognize where we are at in our spiritual life without denying, without pretending, without showing that I'm a great devotee, I've got everything together. We become authentic, at least with devotee community. We become honest, we become compassionate towards others and ourselves. So in this way, we can help each other. And that's the Pandava way of living. That's the Pandava way of thinking. So with this, I will end here. And if you have any comments or questions.
Thank you, Mother, for your class. Thank you so much. I have some questions. You spoke about we should not depend on someone's mercy. But actually, that is our philosophy, to depend on the mercy of the Vaishnavas to progress. So can you elaborate on that?
Thank you, Krishna Prabhu. Yes, there's a difference between eating samosa and eating a prasadam samosa. Do you agree, Krishna Prabhu? Do you like samosas?
Yeah.
Okay, so the difference between depending on the mercy of Vaishnavas and depending on the mercy of others is like the difference between a samosa and a prasadam samosa. Okay, so by Krishna says when we eat food that is not offered to Krishna, we only eat sins. We only eat, you know, not we don't eat prasadam. So similarly, if we become dependent on the mercy of somebody, like in the beginning I spoke about Bhishma or Dronacharya, great personalities, super powerful. They became dependent on Dhritarashtra, right, for their living. And then their life was just ruined because of that dependency. And they were not, it was not prasadam dependency. It was not that they were depending on Dhritarashtra as a service to Krishna or because Krishna instructed, right? They were doing it for their own purposes, their own philosophy. So the point is, if we act according to Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, if we are able to take shelter of Vaishnavas in an unconditional way, not in a manipulative way. Oh, I will do this to this devotee, and that devotee will like me, and they will give me gifts, and they will contact me. That's a mundane relationship. Whereas depending on the mercy of Vaishnavas is unconditional, and it's not based on expectations. It's not based on demanding mercy. We cannot demand mercy. Mercy is something, it's given, it's unconditional, it's given to us. And so sometimes our Maya might be, oh, I am depending on this one devotee because they give such nice class, and this devotee is so much advanced, and I'm so dependent on them. But what we are actually dependent, maybe it's their attention, and it's not really the Krishna conscious philosophy, but we are attached to the person for our own selfish needs of wanting validation, and it's not really for Krishna or for Krishna consciousness. So it can be a very tricky thing. We should not become independent in the sense, I don't need anybody's mercy, I don't need anybody, and I don't need any devotees. But it's a simultaneously dependent and not dependent. Internally, we should be detached, whether the devotees are nice to me or whether the devotees sometimes may neglect me, not to feel affected. But if we become affected, why the devotee didn't say Hare Krishna to me? I've been so nice. I cooked 3 times for this devotee and they're still not nice to me. That becomes more about we became dependent on their validation. You see what I'm saying? So dependent on the mercy basically means if Krishna allows that I get mercy through this person, I get some blessings, I get some instruction, very good. And just before the class, I was reading one of the Vaishnava acharyas was saying something about Ninda. I can't remember the Sanskrit, but something about we must have people in our life who criticize us, who correct us. It may be hurtful, but actually those who can tell us this is where you're going wrong in your spiritual life, and that through that we can improve ourselves. We need that. So when I'm saying dependent on the mercy, if we are okay with the mercy of criticism and the mercy of loving words, then it's okay. But if we are only dependent on the sweet words and the gifts of the devotees, but we don't want to hear where we are going wrong, then it's mundane. It's not prasadam samosa. It's the bird samosa.
Thank you. In the beginning, Prabhupada, the purports talk about the Pandavas were not parasites of the Lord. They were doing their duties as human beings, and they were so devotees. So I was trying to merge it with devotees, especially from the Western world, who renounce to the holy Dham, Mayapur and Vrindavan. So are they being parasites because they're not working like the Pandavas?
That's a very deep question. Yeah, actually, that quote from Srila Prabhupada really touched me. That Pandavas were not parasites, but they were highly qualified. They were working very hard, and yeah, I've seen devotees working very hard but very detached. So I've seen very exalted devotees, exemplary devotees who are like that. And it doesn't really matter whether you're in Mayapur or Vrindavan or wherever you are. It's not the geographical location, but it's the state of mind. It's the state of consciousness. It's not so much about where we are, it's more about who we are. And somebody could be in Mayapur or Vrindavan and be very dependent. But my Guru Maharaj often says, in the Dham, you get 1,000 times the benefit, right? When you do actions, you get multiple times benefit. But then he says, but if you don't chant, you don't read, you're just sleeping, you don't get multiple times anything. So the point is, performing devotional activity wherever you are is going to give the benefit, but we must perform it. It's not that by being in a situation basically multiplied by what are we doing that can be multiplied, right? So it's a practice. I don't know if this answers your question, but my answer is it's a state of mind. It's not so much about whether somebody's being a parasite externally. It's more about, what does it mean? Are we doing our best in our service? Are we helping the mission? By being in Mayapur Dham, there are so many pilgrims who are coming here. Online, we can do preaching, we can do so many things. Wherever we are, we can act in alignment to what Krishna plans for us. Krishna has a plan for us. We don't have to plan too much. He already knows what we must do. All we need to do is align. If we chant good rounds, we will be inspired to do the right things. So, is chanting good rounds and depending on Krishna's mercy being a parasite? Yes and no. Depends on our consciousness, depends on our mood.
Thank you. Our next question is from Sahadev Prabhu. Sahadev, please.
Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Thank you so much for the wonderful class. How are you doing? Good to see you again. Hare Krishna. I have one funny and stupid question. And the question is it that we Hare Krishnas are a different God from the Christians? Is our God different from the Christian God? The reason I'm asking this question is because in the Christian Bible, there was a time where some people were involving themselves in adulterous life, like Sodom and Gomorrah. God became mad at them and punished them. In today's world, we live worse than Sodom and Gomorrah, but God hasn't killed us. According to the prayers that Mother Kunti prayed, she is praying to Krishna that, why are you leaving us at the right time when we have enmity? You never left us when we didn't have enemies. Now that we've killed so many people and have created so many enmities, that's when you're leaving us. So why are you leaving us this time? And this is more than 5,000 years ago. Till today, Krishna still does the same thing. He oftentimes leaves his devotees when they are in trouble. So that's my question. Why hasn't he changed? Hare Krishna.
I think the perfect person to answer this question is Srivas Prabhu, because he knows a lot about Christianity, and I am always inspired by his preaching. When he preaches, I'm just like so inspired, because he's like these super powerful Christian preachers, but he gives the Krishna conscious philosophy. So Srivas Prabhu, this question is definitely, I would love to hear from you what you have to say.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Obeisances, all glories to you, Prabhupada.
Jai.
Maybe you should repeat the question.
Okay, maybe I can repeat it. So
Yeah.
his question was, what's the difference between the Christian God and the Krishna conscious God? And he was quoting different things from Christian thing that I am not familiar with. So I wouldn't be able to repeat those, but from what I understood, his summary of the question was, God comes when there is difficulty, and even like Kunti Devi is speaking about don't leave us when there is time of difficulty. So he's asking, why does God leave when we really, really need him, and why doesn't he stay or come back? And what's this connection between the Christian and uh, Vedic God conception of this aspect, this point about leaving and coming when we really need him? Am I right, Sahadev Prabhu? I hope I summarized it with some flaws.
Yes, it's correct. Because he
Okay.
was mentioning that in the Bible, the Sodom and Gomorrah, when they were sinful, and God have to destroy the city. In Kali Yuga, everybody is sinful, more than Sodom and Gomorrah. And then when the witches are in difficulties, God did not intervene. He abandoned them alone. Why does he keep leaving devotees when they need him most?
Well, interesting question, Prabhu. God is one. There cannot be two gods, definitely, or three, or four. The Supreme Lord is one. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachirananda Vigraha Anadira Adir Govinda Sarva Karanam Karanam. Lord Brahma, who is the engineer of this universe, is defining the position of Krishna. He's the supreme Ishvara, Ishvara Parama. There may be other creators, like Brahma himself is a creator, but the supreme is Krishna, and therefore that is the supreme for everyone. There cannot be two gods, there cannot be three gods. There may be different demigods, different administrators, different empowered beings to play different roles in the universe. But the supreme being, the origin of everything, is Krishna. As Krishna himself says, Sarvasya Kyaham, Aham Sarvasya Prabhavo, that everything material and spiritual emanates from me. So it means that the material creation, the spiritual creation, is coming from that single being, Krishna. And I often refer to Christians and Muslims about the sun. The sun, there is only one sun in the universe, which is shining over the head of everyone. There is no Indian sun, American sun, African sun, Christian sun, Muslim sun, Hindu sun. No, there is only one sun. And that sun is maintaining the whole universe. Is supplying light and energy to the whole universe. And the sun is representing Krishna. So if there is only one sun in the universe maintaining everybody, irrespective of our belief, our creed, our religion, then that means God must be one. Otherwise, then there should have been a Christian sun, a Muslim sun, a Hindu sun. But no, there's only one being. And Krishna said that sun represents him. So therefore, there is only one supreme being, but he's understood in different ways, with different names. And why does Krishna leave us? You see, Krishna comes into this world to perform his pastimes. Actually, Krishna never leaves us. But when he comes into the material world to perform his pastimes, he has to be in different locations to please the devotees. So Krishna left Dwaraka and he's with the devotees in Hastinapur. And now he has finished the business in Hastinapur, he has to return to Dwaraka. Just like Krishna came here to enthuse us with his presence, and when he's finished, he has to return to the spiritual world. So for the purpose of pastimes, Krishna can be somewhere at one time, and he can be somewhere again at one time, depending on the devotee's desire. But ultimately, Krishna is always with us, because as a super soul, he is with us all the time. So actually, Krishna has never left us. But in the material world, it may look like he leaves us because we are not able to feel his presence in the heart. And so we think Krishna left us. But actually, Krishna is a living entity from the very beginning. In the spiritual sky, Krishna never leaves the living entity. Krishna is always present with the living entity, performing his pastimes. So the fact that the Krishna is one, Supreme Lord is one, we can see that many of the things that are described in the Bible or in the Quran actually has its origin from the Vedas. For instance, if you look at the story of Noah, you will see that the story matches with the incarnation of Matsya. When Matsya appeared in this world as a small fish and then gave directions to Satyaraj, the devotee, to put every living entity in the boat, because there was an inundation. There was a universal inundation. And so the Lord appeared as fish, the first incarnation, Matsya Avatar, and gave directions to Satyaraj. That is reported as the story of Noah. You see, so we can see that the scriptures, whether it's from the Quranic point of view or from the biblical point of view, we can see that actually all the scriptures are coming from the Vedas. It is said that even the Kaaba that is being worshipped in Mecca, it is nothing but Shiva Linga. And then we see that on every mosque, we see the moon, the new moon and the star. Where does it come from? Is on the head of Lord Shiva. So Islam, Christianity, they take their origin from the Vedas, but only that they have put it in a way that it looks like it's different. Religion is one, Sanatana Dharma is one, and that is what the Vedas is presenting. So actually, there is only one religion, Christ said, love of God. And there is only one God, that is Krishna. Call him any name, Jehovah, Allah, is the same Krishna. There is only one place for us to go, the spiritual world. And therefore, all humanity, we come from the spiritual world. We are all part and parcel of Krishna. And so our duty is to simply serve Krishna. In whichever way we have been introduced to, according to our level of consciousness, according to time, place, and circumstance, Krishna is sending all these different people to teach the same lesson to different people. So God is one. The air we are breathing is one. The planet Earth we are walking in is one. The water we are drinking is one. So many things point to the fact that we are all coming from one source, and that is Krishna. I don't know whether I have been able to.
Thank you, Prabhu, so much.
Very thorough. Thank you so much. Very thorough.
It's more than our next question is from Saleka Prabhu. Saleka, please.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Please accept my respectful obeisances of Bishop Prabhupada.
Hi.
Thank you very much for the wonderful class. I picked something from the course of your lecture. The understanding is okay, but the application I wanted to ask question about. The course of your lecture, you're talking about how we try to fill the gap of lack of Krishna consciousness in our lives by trying to build some relationships, either male or female, or money, or any other thing whatsoever. So talking about the application of this understanding of philosophy, we see that sometimes in life, practical terms, you see that someone is engaging in devotional service, practically is trying in devotional service to be a devotee, but also the material body is there. There are needs. Maybe it is business, maybe it is wife, maybe it is husband, and there are challenges. And sometimes when it is not working, maybe probably for let's say a husband and wife relationship, then the next thing is that the husband or the wife wants to actually get, sometimes someone might be renounced and you just forgo the married life altogether and continue spiritual life. But not everybody can do this. So he wants to get another marriage. Or sometimes it is business, he's doing some work and somehow or the other, for whatever reason, not known to him. For example, COVID-19 situation, and many people lost their job. They need to look for another job. So my question is, how does this relate to what your explanation is?
Thank you, Salika Prabhu, for the question. Okay. So if I understood your question correctly, you're speaking about the basic necessities of working, having relationship, family, etc. Are they also like substitutes, or do they have a healthy place in life? So definitely, family life, grihastha duty is devotional service if you do it with the right consciousness. So it's not separate. If you're doing it to please Krishna, by taking raising children nicely, by pleasing your wife, to making sure she's nourished, making sure she's happy and engaged, that is devotional service. Facilitating the growth of your family members is devotional service. So there's no doubt about it. But when I'm speaking of substitutes, we know very well when it is substitution and when it is our duty. What you're speaking of, making an income for the family, working, having a career, having a family, doing, those are not things that we are looking for. When we want to escape something, we're not going there. Those are duties. It's hard work. Raising a family, keeping your family together, it's hard work. Running a good, successful business is hard work. When I say substitutes, we often look for quick substitutes, like I said about food addiction, or some people have love addiction, some people have sex addiction, some people have addiction to pornography. These are addictions that we want to run away from the duties of taking care of the family, doing our sadhana, taking care of our job, and we want to go the easy way to gratify that pain that is there in these duties and responsibilities as a grihastha, as a devotee, as a whatever work you're doing as a career person. When we face challenges there, we get some sort of triggers, something that triggers us, and we find it difficult to perform those duties consistently and dutifully. Then we look for substitutes which will never fulfill us. And I'm talking about relationships which are adharmic, relationships which are outside marriage, or relationships even within a marriage, but becoming too dependent on your partner to make you feel good. Those are all the substitutes we're looking for. Instead of chanting your rounds and doing your sadhana, if you become too dependent of giving your wife or the husband all the mundane material enjoyments, for instance, and you're not doing your duty of spiritual sadhana, that can become very dangerous. And you may be substituting, oh, I want to keep my family happy, so I'm working so hard that I'm giving hardly any time. No time. You're not giving any time for your spiritual sadhana, and you're working hard. You become a workaholic. People are addicted to work sometimes, so they become so addicted to work that they neglect to take care of the soul. It's like trying to keep the cage very clean and not feeding the bird. So you may become like a very obsessive person, collecting money, that you forget to feed your soul, you forget to feed the soul of your family members by spending time with them. Sometimes your children, your wife, they don't actually need you to bring home more money. Sometimes all they want is more of you. They want you to spend time with them. Sit down every day, 10 minutes, start your day with reading Bhagavatam. That's what your family needs. It's not that you go and become a workaholic, right? So when I speak of substitutes, it's something that we want to do, and we kind of give an excuse because we don't want to face the pain and reality the world and life and responsibilities and duties is giving us. So we go for substitutes. We go for food addiction or work addiction or any sort of thing that is we think or we feel that it's pacifying us, but all we are doing is just substituting Krishna or our duties for these activities. But what we need to do in this struggle is acknowledge, I'm in pain, I'm struggling, not deny that. But instead of going for substitutes, we go to Krishna. We pray, we kneel down, we cry to Krishna, we take the japa bag, we chant on the beads and say, Krishna, please. That's a phone call, right? This is a WhatsApp connection with Krishna as your japa. So we japa, we're chanting and say, Krishna, I'm struggling, please help me. Krishna, my mind wants to go after the substitutes, but then I'm going to feel bad. Some people have gambling problem, right? They go and waste money. They finish, they blow all the money they have. No matter how much money you give them, they don't know how to manage money. So these are all the ways that we try to substitute our relation with Krishna. So please don't mistake me that when I say substitute with relationships, it doesn't mean the healthy family relationships which are within Dharma. Sometimes people have problem in their marriage and they look for solutions outside marriage. They have an affair and that's looking for substitute, but it's never going to solve the problem. They're going to end up in more problems. They're going to feel miserable. They're going to feel guilty, and the marriage problem is not fixed. So the point is, when we have a problem in a certain area, we want to run away, escape, and find substitute. No, we have to find solution in there by taking shelter of Krishna. Like the Pandavas, right? They didn't do what Duryodhana did. They didn't go after Duryodhana the way, the way somebody they didn't go after Duryodhana the way Duryodhana tried to cheat Pandavas. He didn't do that. So similarly, we need to look at our life and see, am I escaping my duties and responsibilities? Or am I taking advantage? I'm taking opportunity of the struggles. No, like Kunti Devi speaking about, she's asking, may the calamities come again and again. She's asking for the difficulties because that's the human mind. When difficulties are there, we cry to Krishna. In Kannada language, we say Sankatadalli Venkataramana. Sankata means difficulty and Venkata means Krishna. So in difficulty, we naturally think of Krishna. We take shelter of Krishna. So Krishna is giving us this difficulty. It's a blessing. It's a mercy. So we have two options. One, try to look for substitutes, which is going to make us feel worse actually, because like any drug, any addiction is going to make us feel worse. Or we work hard and say, no, Krishna, I don't want the addiction. I don't want a substitute. I want you. I'm going to take shelter of you. And be kind. When we have weakness, when we have slips, when we have some fall down, be kind to ourselves and those who are going through difficulties as well. Not to become judgmental, not to punish yourself. Okay? So that's the substitute.
Thank you, Mother. We
Thank
go
you
to
very much for the answers.
Ganga Prashad, please.
Hare Krishna, Mother. Thank you very much for the class.
Hi, Prabhu.
I just want that you help put a little more insight in the question that Krishna lives. When Kunti is saying Krishna is leaving us today, are you leaving us today? And Sadev Prabhu said, why does God not come when devotees need him most? And I just see that Narad Muni also got darshan of God, and then he vanished from his sight. But he gave him an encouraging statement that I am doing this just to increase your hankering for me. So that is the area I want you to help us throw a little more light on. That is one, Narad Muni's experience, and then Krishna leaving us to increase our hankering, and also Krishna giving us Bhagavatam, that when we hear Bhagavatam from the rightful source, Krishna comes to sit in our hearts.
Go on, Prabhu.
Yeah, so I just want you to help reconcile these circumstances. Although Srivas Unachari Maharaj has already said, Krishna never leaves us. So,
Ganga Prasad Prabhu, thank you very much. So if I understand your question correctly, you're asking me some more points or clarification about this question that was asked earlier about Krishna leaving the planet. Why does he leave us? And how do we reconcile with the fact that Krishna never leaves? Yeah, I mean, as you beautifully said, Krishne swadhamo pagate dharma jnana divisaha kalo nashtam drisham mesha puranarko adhunodita. So this is actually Srimad Bhagavatam, right? When Krishna left, dharma jnana and dharma means religiosity and knowledge, they all left along with Krishna. But because of the mercy of Krishna, he left puranarko adhunodita. extraordinary, the Bhagavata Purana, the greatest of the Puranas. That is Krishna. It is personally Swayam Bhagavan Krishna. It's non-different from Krishna. There is no question about that, that Krishna and Bhagavatam are one and the same. And when we're speaking about Kunti and the Pandavas, and you spoke about Narad Muni having personal darshan of Krishna, Krishna takes different forms, right? Krishna was physically present during the pastimes of Pandavas. And so they saw him, they touched him, they held him. It's, we cannot even imagine the kind of pleasure and the kind of separation, the extremities of happiness and the separation of being physically with Krishna and seeing Krishna physically going away. It's unimaginable, but we can kind of imagine. Let me ask you this question. For a moment, imagine, okay? Just imagine. Krishna forbid that it never happens, but just imagine. Your holy name is taken away from you. You cannot chant Hare Krishna. Let's say, in the whole world, like we have COVID lockdown, there's a lockdown and chanting of the holy name. You cannot chant. Right? Imagine this situation. How would we feel? I almost got traumatized the first time I meditated and imagined this situation. I cannot think of living without the holy name. It's unimaginable for me if I'm stopped from chanting the holy name. I don't know about you, but for me, it's just like I would rather die, than to not have the holy name. So we can think of Kunti Devi when she's asking this question in this specific verse we've discussed today. She's saying, how can you leave? That's like, imagine us asking, how can the holy name be taken away? There are some countries in the world, you're not allowed to practice Krishna consciousness. And I have friends that keep like a tiny little Krishna's picture inside their closet, that nobody can see, because they can be physically beaten up and sent to jail for decades if they are found that they are even considering changing their religion. And these individuals cannot have bells, cannot have kartals, cannot have mridanga. They cannot have deity pictures in their house because their government has cameras and everywhere, and you cannot do devotional shift or religious shift. So when we think of situations that are practically applicable to us, if Bhagavatam is taken away from us, if the holy name is taken away from us, imagine the amount of grief we will experience. So that was the grief Kunti Devi was speaking of. Okay. And also we are, I'm remembering one song of Purandara Dasa. I really like that sentence in that particular bhajan. And he says, ಸಾವು ನೋವುಗಳಿಲ್ಲವೆಂದು ತಿಳಿಯಬಾರದು, ದೇವನೊಬ್ಬನಿರುವನೆಂದು ಮರೆಯಬಾರದು, ಕೈ ಮೀರಿ ಹೋದ ಮಾತಿಗೆ ಮರುಗಬಾರದು, ಮೈ ಮೇಲೆ ಎಚ್ಚರಿಲ್ಲದಲ್ಲೇ ತಿರುಗಬಾರದು. It's a very beautiful bhajan. And he says, we should not think that there's no misery in this world, there's no death, there is no trauma, there is not all the atrocities of this material world filled with material conditioning. At the same time, we should not forget that Devanobba Niruvanendu. We should never forget that Krishna is always there. Krishna is always there. He's, all we need to do is just turn towards him. If we take one step in calling out to Krishna, he takes 10 steps towards us, and that's Krishna. So practically speaking, Krishna is there, in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. I would say Srimad Bhagavatam is like a father, eternal father. He can give us vision, direction, guidance. And the holy name is like the mother, nourishing, soothing, nurturing. Hare, right? The holy name and invocation is Hare, is the Srimati Radharani. It's the invoking the feminine energy of God. So the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra is our mother, eternal mother that nourishes and takes care of us. And the Srimad Bhagavatam can be considered like the father. So regardless of what kind of parents we had, how dysfunctional they were, how incapable they were in guiding us and nourishing us, we have here and now Krishna in the form of the holy name, Krishna in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. We can take shelter. And this bhajan that I quoted says, Kai miri hoda matige marugabaradu, mai mele yeccharilladale tirugabaradu. Means don't, it's the same philosophy of Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is speaking about Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma na shochati na kangshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu. So this bhajan is saying, don't lament. Don't lament for things that have happened in the past. Na shochati, when Krishna says about shochati, it means lamentation. Oh, I should have done that way. I should have done this way. If only Krishna was present physically, things would have been so much better. If I was in Sridham Mayapur, my life would be so much better. If only I had a better association of devotees. If I had a guru who was a little bit more attentive towards me, all this kind of blah, blah, blah that we go on about all day. Lamentation, thinking of the past, it's tamoguna. Okay, thinking of if only I had that, if I could be a different person, if I could have a different situation, if I could have a different wife, if I could have a different husband, if I could have it's unending. And nakangshati, mai mele yeccharilladale tirugabaradu, means we shouldn't act with irresponsibility. We shouldn't just, waste our day dreaming and kangshati, hankering, fantasizing about a life. And, I will do this and I will do that, then I will be happy. And, planning things based on external things, like I will go to India and then I'll become more spiritual. I will go and live in Mayapur for 1 year, then I'm going to become spiritual. But remember, I was telling you, my Guru Maharaj often says, if you come to Mayapur, but then you just sleep all day, you don't get any benefit. You don't get zero multiplied by zero is zero. You don't get anything. So if we don't have a practice of taking shelter of the holy name where we are, in the situation we are, no matter what kind of better situation we have, better relationships we have, better facilities we have, zero multiplied by whatever is zero. Okay, it doesn't make a difference. So this is my answer. It's about taking responsibility, and like Prabhupada is saying in the purport, Pandavas were not parasites. They worked very hard. They were very qualified. And that's the right mood of a devotee. Act like everything, like pray like everything depends on Krishna, and act like everything depends on you. That's the whole Bhagavad Gita philosophy. Karta, the dilemma, are we the doer or not? So the secret is we should pray like everything depends on Krishna, but we should perform our duties like everything depends on us.
Thank you, Mother. We have 2 more questions from George Omega, please. George.
Bhakta George, you there?
Okay, before he comes, I have 1 more question. In the course of your lecture, you talk about lack of compassion on ourselves. So, because my question is, the soul does not really feel the pains of the material body. So the soul does not even really care which body it goes to. Even Paramatma in the body can't even control the physical body. So having compassion of living a righteous life, not to take birth millions of times again, it's only, from understanding, it only concerns the physical body and not the soul. But the soul does not feel the pain of the body, and the Paramatma also cannot force the physical body to live aright, because whatever body the soul goes, Paramatma goes with the body, goes with the soul, even to a worm, a body of a worm or a hog. So having compassion, to me, it only concerns the physical body. It has nothing to do with the spirit soul. So can you throw more light on that?
Thank you, Kusha Prabhu. Very, very interesting question. See, our definition of compassion and kindness sometimes needs to be redefined. Sometimes we think that, if I'm compassionate with myself, I will become too weak and I will become too lenient and I will not do my sadhana, or I will not do. That's not actually compassion. Because if we are compassionate and kind with ourselves, we will take care of ourselves. We will do activities that are favorable for us, that will nourish us. And your question is very relevant, that most of the times mundane compassion or compassion to the body is what we usually understand and see. But let me give you an analogy. Think of a baby, okay? Think of a baby 3 months old. And you need to, the baby cries, cannot even say I'm hungry, cannot even say I'm thirsty, cannot even say change my diapers, cannot even say I'm feeling hot, cannot say I'm feeling cold, none of that, right? Just there, cries, smiles, you have to feed it, you have to take care of it. And those of you who have had babies, or you have, maybe your sisters have child or something, you've had experience with babies. Do you look at that baby and say, come on, don't have compassion to that body, don't feed it, don't change the diapers, it's just a body anyway, just chant Hare Krishna. Child doesn't need any other care. Do we think like that? No. We recognize that in order for us to nourish the soul, we need to take into consideration that we as souls are in this material body. And in Vishnu Sahasranam, which was spoken by Bhishmacharya on the Kurukshetra war, they say Sandiman Stiraha. There's a beautiful verse with a beautiful sentence about Sandiman Stiraha. So Krishna is not just in this material body. He is in between the nerves and in between the gaps of our body, where in this body reside so many devatas, the Ashwini devatas and Indra and Varuna and all the demigods. They are all serving the Paramatma who's seated in the center of our heart. Deshe Arjuna Tishtati. Krishna speaking to Arjuna and saying, I'm seated within everyone's heart. And he's the Aham Bija Pradapata. He's the eternal seed-giving father to everyone. And that supreme personality of Godhead, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, he is the master and the boss of the entire world, has taken residence in your heart, in that physical heart that beats. By stopping of that physical beating of the heart, you die. So this material body is very precious. Yantra Rudhani Maya. So this is the material body is a machine. Okay. Yes, it's an illusion. It's formed of material elements. At the same time, without this material body, we are ghosts. We cannot chant. We cannot eat prasadam. We cannot serve devotees. So I personally have seen that sometimes devotees have so many challenges, so many issues with controlling our mind and understanding the philosophy in the right way. But then we come to this point of, we are not this material body anyway. So, we can neglect it. We don't have to take care of it. No, that's not the philosophy at all. We need to take care of the material body if we want to perform devotional service in a healthy way. Otherwise, what good is this yantra, this material machine, if it's sick, lazy, depressed? Many devotees sometimes are overweight, or they don't actually take care of their health. They don't do yoga or the exercises, and then the body becomes weak and the mind becomes weak, and we're unable to perform devotional service. So the point is, every single minute in this material body is precious. And a few days ago, somebody committed suicide in Mayapur, and that person now has no body, cannot go to Mangalarati, cannot chant his rounds, cannot eat prasadam. It became a ghost. So you can't be careless. This material body, who cares? I'll just kill it because I can't tolerate the suffering. But then, then the soul becomes a ghost without the material body. Who knows for how long without a body? So body is precious because it's a gift of God, and God resides in our heart. So we must take very, very care, lot of care, much, how do you call it? We must take care of this material body as a service to Krishna, because this body doesn't belong to us. This body belongs to Krishna. This body belongs to spiritual master. And not following the regulative principles and breaking regulative principles is not only sin because it's bad and it will take us off the course. It's because with the same material body that we can do activities that bring us down, we can also do activities that will uplift us and liberate us. So material body is required to perform devotional service. I hope.
Thank you. Last question from George Omega.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hare Krishna, George.
First of all, I would like to know what is the actual use of this mataji? Is it referring to a young lady or to a woman? Because often in Ghana here, we normally use mother instead of the Sanskrit word. Which one is preferable? Is it
Yeah.
mataji? Is it referring to a woman or a young lady?
Okay, thank you, Bhakta George.
Actually, that's not my question. I just want to use the right word. That's why.
Okay. Okay, so this answer, I personally like very much mother because it kind of makes me feel, I don't know, I've been in Africa, I lived there, and I really like when devotees call mother. It is so much more intimate, more close. But Mataji is, yeah, it's the same word mother in Indian language. That's all.
Oh, okay. Okay. Okay, my question is, there is something that is trending on social media, and it related to the holy dam, whereby there are some devotees that I'm trying to cultivate. They brought this thing to my attention. So the question is, when you talk of protection, does it referring to the body or the spirit soul as well? The reason why is that during this very pandemic, some part of the holy dam, talking about India, some were thinking that the deities are not protecting them. For that matter, they burn some of the deities. So I would like to know, when we talk of protection, is it referring to the body alone or the spirit soul as well? Because this question was brought to me by those devotees I'm trying to cultivate, and I've not been able to give them tangible answer as to where those Indians have to throw away their deities to the extent of burning them. So this is my question. Hare Krishna, Mother. I don't know if you have seen it also on social media.
Mataji, please,
Yeah.
I like to moderate this. That was a misinformation. It is the surgeon of Ganapati that some people use in Africa especially the Christians, to make propaganda that, oh, see, the Indians are giving up their God because it didn't protect them in Corona. But that picture they use is Visajan of Ganapati.
Oh, thank you, Ganga Prasad Prabhu, for the clarification. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Every year they have this huge deities of Ganesh that they go and submerge in the water, like ocean or river. And submerging Ganesha deity in the ocean or the river is not called abandoning. It's a ritualistic process that after they install the Ganapati and they worship the Ganapati, then they submerge. Of course, it's demigod worship and it's not recommended for Vaishnavas, but it is in no way like rejecting or how do you say abandoning or giving up God. Yeah, thank you, Ganga Prasad Prabhu. But when you were saying about protection, George, were you speaking about like Prabhupada when he speaks about protecting devotees, or were you speaking about? I didn't understand the part of that.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk as a devotee, when you talk of protection, are we talking of the bodily aspect, or we are talking about the spirit soul, or is both? That's my question.
That's a very good question.
Okay, thank you.
There are different levels of protection required. As I said, a 3-month-old baby requires a specific kind of protection. A 1-year-old baby requires another kind. When the baby's 3 years old, you discipline the child and say, don't go near the fire, don't climb the stairs, and that's protection. And then when we grow up, some of us, we remain as 3-year-olds. That's a different thing. We need to be told again and again what not to do. But the idea is in Ayurveda, there's a whole thing as babies, we are like fish. It is said we just put anything we find, we put it in the mouth, right? Babies do that. So that's one level. And then we become like teenagers, we become like snakes. We're very defensive and we become upset and angry very soon. That's another stage. Ultimately, we're supposed to grow up and come to that stage of being people that we can protect others, right? We're not only expecting protection from others. So that's, I just want to say that before I say what protection actually means. So depending on which level of devotional life we are, we require different kinds of protection. Now, protection as a holistic understanding, we need to know that it's not just about the body, although, I mean, it's not just about the body, or it's not just about the soul. Although we do see the analogy of trying to save a drowning man's cloth or a shirt instead of saving the drowning man. So that's like trying to just protect the body and not the soul. Although the analogy is there, still we need to understand that as human beings in Kali Yuga, with the kind of world situation we are in, spiritually we are all babies. We all have needs that you may say, no, but you're not supposed to have those needs. You're supposed to be more mature. You're supposed to be grown up. But there are children, right? Their growth is stunted. Even at 5 years old, they don't know how to speak. So sometimes we require extra help. And our Vaishnava acharyas describe that, being in Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, it's like being in an ambulance when we are hurt. Without any traffic rules, we can go very fast, go through all the traffic things to get to the hospital. So in many other sampradayas, like the Madhva Sampradaya, or the Sri Sampradaya, or other Rudra Sampradaya and other authorized sampradayas, the rules and regulations are so much more tough. But in the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, we have mercy and we have blessings, and our rules and regulations are catered to fit the needs of the, like to facilitate the needs of this baby like spirituality we have. So as an organization, we need to know that protection is on the body, mind, emotions, soul, sometimes even financial protection. All these things have to be taken into consideration. And we cannot just say, oh, I don't care about whether you have enough money or not. You just chant Hare Krishna. We don't care that your grandmother died, don't worry, she was not the body anyway. Just chant Hare Krishna, right? We sometimes do that. Or your father or your mother died. Oh, come on, they were not the body anyway. Relax, just chant Hare Krishna. That's kind of impersonalism. That's like it's becoming too hard-hearted. Okay, this Narottam Das Thakur's song that I quoted earlier, speak about the fish. There's also, see, fish in Krishna's lotus feet, right? I have a little Krishna here and try to show you his lotus feet. This is a little Gopal. This is my grandfather's Gopal. So he has a fish in his lotus feet, marking of a fish. So in order for Krishna's fish to come into our heart needs to be melted with love, compassion for the emotions, for the heart, and for the difficulties, not only of the soul, but I mean, soul means also all this, okay? It's a combination of all this. Somebody who's emotionally trapped and depressed cannot progress in spiritual life. So being mature devotees, we need to take care of the devotees in all levels: physical, mental, emotional, psychological, all levels. And that is real devotee care. That is taking care of devotees in a genuine, authentic way, in a compassionate way. Also with ourselves, we shouldn't just keep telling ourselves, you're not the body, and keep punishing ourselves. We need to see how to Krishnaize everything, how to I'm feeding this body because I can serve Krishna. I'm taking Krishna Prasadam. My grandmother, she always wears very expensive jewelry, and she always liked to wear silk saris, and she would say, the Krishna is residing in my heart, so I must take care of this body in the best possible elegant way, and I should not neglect my body. So that is Krishna consciousness. If Krishna is residing in my heart, I must have a healthy emotional life, because that's the way I can honor Krishna. So yeah, I think African devotees are especially a little bit too austere. I know some of you are very hard on yourself, and sometimes you become hard on others too, I guess. But there's a difference between austerity and being too hard and neglectful on your body. So there has to be a good balance. We have to take care of ourselves as service to Krishna, so we can be the best possible version of ourselves to serve Krishna. Okay.
Hare Krishna, Mother, thank you very much. Um, I know it's been almost 2 hours now we've kept you here, but we still have one question, and I also have one other question. I don't know if it is not inconvenient. Can we go ahead? Did you hear me, Matuji?
I heard you. I'm not the manager of this event. I have not organized it. You have to ask.
Yeah.
Go on. She, Salika, make it snappy. She has 9 more minutes to make it 2 hours.
Okay. My question is on the test of today. Mother Kunti actually was it's a prayer saying, "Oh my Lord, you have executed all duties yourself. Are you leaving us today? Though we are completely dependent on your mercy, and have no one else to protect us. Now, when all kings are at enmity with us." And when I was reading this text this morning before the class, what came to my mind was the last time I had a physical association with my Guru Maharaj. And when he was living, even though he was not physically having any challenge then, but I have this strong feeling as if that was going to be the last time I was going to see him. I was so much reluctant to let him go. And he requested all of his disciples to go back to their base. We were in a particular temple in Nigeria, Port Harcourt, and he said everyone should go back to their temple. But I was insisting I wanted to go back with him to Lagos before he leaves the country. And he said, no, you should go back to your base. And eventually, after that, then the whatever happened, that external reasons. But then he was going to leave us. And I wrote him a mail and I asked him, can I come and see you for one more time before at least you leave us? All right. And he wrote me back saying that just remember me based on whatever I've taught you during the course of my relationship with you. So he didn't allow me to go to him. And I'm looking at Mother Kunti's statement in this text, and something is going in my mind. How do we deal with the departure of a dear one, a guru, a god brother, god sister? How do we deal with this? Can you give some advice?
Thank you, Sarika Prabhu. So if I understood your question, you would like to hear more about how we can deal with losing some loved ones.
Yeah.
That's a tough question. Honestly, I have still not done it. I lost my grandfather when I was 10 years old. And he was everything to me. He was my world. He was my first Shiksha Guru. He introduced me to Krishna consciousness, to japa, for everything. He was my everything, my mother, my father, my everything. I would not live without him for a day. And you're recounting the story with your Guru Maharaj reminds me of me talking to him on the last day before he left. And it's very difficult, but in my own practical experience, I must say, if we really miss somebody so much, and if a loved one is gone, the more we remember them shows how important they were, how much their presence was beneficial and uplifting for us. 3 months ago, I lost my long-term maid and assistant. She was working with us for about 8-9 years. And she left on Gaur Purnima day. She had a heart attack and she left. And I was missing her so much. She would cook for us. She would do puja. She was like amazing person. And everything I would see her, she would bring me this bottle of water every day, and she would bring these specific flowers. She was doing this constantly. I was remembering, and then it showed that when I die, the more people miss me, that will show how useful I've been in my life. So missing somebody is not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. Like I miss my grandfather every single day. Morning, I wake up reciting shlokas he taught me. Evening, I go to sleep reciting shlokas he taught me. And I remember him all the time. So they live with us forever. If their presence is being Krishna conscious and beneficial, they never leave us, just like Krishna, right? Krishna left, but he left Bhagavatam, right? He left the Purana Arko Adhunotta, just like a bright sun to dispel the darkness of the clouded minds. Krishna left Bhagavatam. Similarly, the souls that depart leave us with instructions, leave us with teachings, leave us with love. I mean, if I have anything that turned out okay about me, it was because of my grandfather. Complete credit goes to my grandfather. And I guess my parents are listening to this as I'm saying, and they will not be able to argue about it. But I thank them that they gave me my grandfather. But anything good that has happened in my life was because of my grandfather, because he was so Krishna conscious that those first 10 years of my life, he nourished and he nurtured me with Krishna consciousness. Every day he would read from Krishna book. He would tell me stories of Srila Prabhupada. And he taught me by example. He would chant every day and he would do puja every day. And so I lost him when I was 10 years old, okay? And probably you were more of an adult, Salika Prabhu, when your Guru Maharaj left. And I remember him every single day, and he means the world to me. And I still miss him, and I remember him, and he's with me. So that's the power of philosophical understanding, that we're not this body. That's where we need to apply. Okay, his body is not here, but a whole Srimad Bhagavatam is there for me. Everything he lived by, his example. He was a very tolerant, very sattva guna person. He told me not to, many instructions, I'm sure, Salika Prabhu, your Guru Maharaj left to you, that you could take a lifetime or more, following them. So loved ones are never gone. We in Mayapur have been having many of these experiences. We lost Pankajangiri Prabhu recently. We lost Bhakti Chara Swami, and it was very, very difficult. But one consolation, also my maid, I was talking about, her name was Tulsi Mataji. She left. And the point is, for them, it was great they left. They are now progressed into their, who knows, in the spiritual world, the next destination, next missionary life. They are there. They're fine. But we have their memories, their love left. And we must nourish ourselves with that. And we must make them proud by living up to their teachings and their example. And you, especially Guru, when you live to your expectation of your Guru, you are keeping him alive. So for me, I feel the same. I keep my grandfather alive by following principles that he taught me.
Thank you very much, Mataji, for the wonderful answer.
It's a fortune and a responsibility. If we met great people that loved us, we have a responsibility to keep them alive by living with their principles.
Yeah, thank you very much. Actually, I found myself crying this morning and I'm still feeling in that mood even up till now, because I can't just get it out of my head since morning when I read this part class, because I'm so much missing Gurudev today more than anything. And I'm praying that it gives me the empowerment so that I can do something.
Is your Guru Maharaj Bhakti Tirth Maharaj?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. I miss him too. I miss him so much. And for me, I met him only a few times, and it's been life-changing experiences. So yeah, you're so fortunate, Prabhu. You're so fortunate.
Thank you, madam. We have another question from Kavi Kanapu Prabhu.
Oh yeah, he has his hand raised. Yes, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Radha.
Jai, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Please accept my humble obeisances. So thank you very much for the wonderful enlightening lecture you are giving us from your realization. So towards the end of your lecture, you mentioned about we African being hard on ourselves. So I would like to ask, of course, it's true to some extent, because I've been kind of observing also and analyzing the way we are practicing our spiritual life. And I see that truly devotees sometimes they can be too hard on themselves, and that affects the way they relate with others, because then you can see they want others to emulate or to follow that kind of footsteps, and if you are not up to that standard, it's like you are falling, or you are useless, or you are Maya. And so how can we, upcoming, because we know that our elders or the old devotees, they have, take some ways of practicing their own Krishna consciousness, and it's very difficult for some of them to change. But the devotees who are coming after them, how can they practice devotional service in a way that we will not be hard on ourselves, and that we impart the way we show love to those who are going to be preaching to in the future. So that is what I don't know, maybe if you can just throw more light on that. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Kavikarna Prabhu. Wonderful to see you. Yeah, it's a very relevant question for today's spiritual organization like ISKCON. Now, why do we have difficulty in being kind with ourselves and others in the organization? That's a question we need to ask, right? Most of the times, let me say one thing, like a fun fact. Europeans, like say, Germans or French people or Italians, they're like very mental people. They're very like, they think a lot, and everything is based on their understanding with their mind. Okay, that's the way they work. Okay, Africans are similar to Indians. Okay, we're kind of sentimental. We're not mental. We don't get mental about things. If something convinces us from the heart, we will give our life for it, right? That's like, I really feel much more African, although married to European. I really feel more, I relate so much to the African blood is like that. If, it's almost like we either love somebody or we hate somebody, and we can give our life to somebody we love. There's nothing in between, that's kind of African mood a little bit. So the same way, when we practice Krishna consciousness, we bring that sentimentalism a little bit, right? We become kind of sentimental about Krishna and Guru Parampara, and we push. We have to do this for Srila Prabhupada. I guess it also comes from the Christian backgrounds that you may have, that kind of like, I have to give my life to Jesus, that kind of thing that comes from there. So it's a good thing. It's good to be giving our heart and being there. But sometimes devotional service, please let's remember, devotional service can be practiced in Sattvagun, Rajagun, or Tamagun. So when we're speaking about lack of compassion, criticizing people, judging people, punishing ourselves when we're not up to standard, this is all devotional service in the mode of tamoguna, or ignorance. In the mode of ignorance, we think that devotional service is all about rules and regulations, and we see everything as black or white. And when things are not actually how we think, we may reject devotees, or we may punish ourselves, right? We sometimes have some weakness. Maybe somebody has some weakness with, say, drinking coffee or smoking or whatever. They know it's not in line with principles of Krishna consciousness. But then whenever they have that weak moment, they beat themselves up by saying, I'm not going to give myself this and that. And we cut ourselves from doing things that's good for us because we are not good boy or good girl. So it takes us back to childhood. Okay. If you had a child and it was having a specific problem, how would you deal with it? So similarly, we all have inner child. There's a little Kavikarnapur inside you, and it's that little boy, innocent, having certain needs, wants certain affection, acceptance, Similarly, there's also little Salika, there is a little Sahadev, there's a little Narayani, there's a little Radha Kund, there's a little Pradyumna, there's a Lokadasi, little Ganga Prasad, and also little Srivas. So we all have little people inside us, right? Little children that we were left with something incomplete as a child. So it naturally, those needs will come up. Those needs will come up for us. And we shouldn't just say, hey, you shut up. Hey, you shut up, little Sri Radha Govinda, or little Sri, you just shut up. Don't come up with these needs. I can do that once. I can do that twice. I can do that 3 times, right? Then at one point, she's going to come out in the wrong place at the wrong time if I keep doing that. So we must recognize that process of devotional service is not just about tamoguna and rajoguna, pushing ourselves to don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that. It's one aspect of spiritual advancement. But the real aspect of advancement is that, what, going back to the beginning of the class, authenticity, honesty, openness, sincerity, in seeing where we are really in our spiritual life, and accepting, making peace, getting help from others to nourish ourselves, nourish that little child, right? That little child there who needs something, and we can give that in a spiritual way. So for African blood, there's always that sense of austerity, right? Toughness is the way you have to give your life, you have to give your blood. That's kind of the native African culture. But let's remember that coming into Gaudiya Vaishnavism, when we have converted, or we've come to this acceptance of Sanatana Dharma, which is eternal religion, which Srivas Prabhu beautifully explained. Christian God, Hindu God is not like African sun and Indian sun and European sun. There's only one sun. So African conditioning, let's call it like that. We all have conditioning. Sometimes Indians have our conditioning, Westerners have their conditioning. So the conditioning has to be recognized. We need to see what is our conditioning. And then Gaudiya Vaishnavism is about love. So if you can't love yourself, you can't love that little Janardana in yourself, you can't be loving to others. If you're too hard on yourself, you have not made it in life, you're not good enough. If we keep saying that to ourselves, externally we may be great preacher, give Bhagavatam class and be temple president or a whatever, GBC or whatever we may become. That's only the external dress. But internally, it will all depend on how much compassion I have for myself. So I can give the best Krishna conscious experience to myself. Otherwise, we will deprive ourselves. We will punish ourselves because of the mistakes we do, because of the weakness we have. But in this purport, what we are learning is we need to align to Krishna's will. We need to see what Krishna wants for us. Sometimes Krishna wants us to go through exile, which means maybe one of our addictions, one of our problems. And through that, we will grow and come out and realize that, oh, you know what? I had a fall down or whatever, but I fell into the arms of Krishna. Because Krishna is all accepting Father. He never judges us. He never thinks, oh, why this baby is needing diaper change, right? We all go through our stage of change of diaper and being fed with our feeding bottle in Krishna consciousness. And sometimes, like, a few years ago, my husband had an accident and he was bedridden for like a few weeks. He had a rib cage fracture and he couldn't move. So I was taking care of him and doing all things like I would do to a baby, right? There was a stage, right? It was a literal fall in the physical body fall. And there was a time of taking care, but then he healed, he got back up, and he is now the man who protects me. So we all will go through stages in our spiritual life when we are weak, when we need extra care. And we need to be kind to ourselves. If when we need help, we don't ask for it, we don't acknowledge we need help, then depression, suicide, aggressiveness, all this will be the result. And we've seen that happening. So we must be mature devotees, and we must be in the mode of sattva guna or goodness, to see reality for what it is, and not just passion, austerity, do this. And it may make, my Guru Maharaj often says, it will make austerities will make our heart very hard, our heart very hard. And then, the fish in Krishna's feet cannot swim in the heart. Now we are hard-hearted, rock-hearted. How can Krishna's feet, fish can swim? So we need to melt our hearts. And we can melt our hearts by beginning to be kind with ourselves and kind with our friends, our family, and accepting ourselves for where we are. You know what? Krishna is okay with where we are, as long as we take shelter of him. And it's humbling to see our weaknesses. But who says we're not supposed to have weakness? Who says we should not have problems? Pandavas had problems. Kunti Devi is having problems here in this verse. So problems is not the problem. Not thinking of Krishna is the problem. Even if that problem means weakness to follow principles or weakness to be something, that's not the point. We shouldn't think I'll become independent, I will control my mind, I will control my senses, and then I will be victorious. No, the victory is to think of Krishna and say, Krishna, I'm humble, I'm weak, I'm powerless, I have this issue. I can't stop myself from eating 10 cakes a day. Please help me. So even if I end up eating 10 cakes, I don't beat myself up by starving myself for the next 3 weeks. Instead, I will give myself more Krishna, because that's what I need.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mother. Thank you so much. Problem is not a problem. Not thinking of Krishna is the problem. That's a very good one.
Only problem. Yeah.
I'll take that home today for this today's class. Thank you very much. We kept you for 2 hours, 10 minutes. It's great. And we really appreciate your coming onto this platform. We're looking forward to see you very soon again to come and give us this wonderful realization. On this note, I'll request all of the devotees to please kindly unmute. Let us loudly chant.
I think Shivas probably want to say something. I think Shivas probably want to say something. Prabhu is looking at the camera. Yes,
okay,
yes.
Please, Prabhuji. Sorry, pardon me.
Hare Krishna, Kavi Kanapura Prabhu, you are a yogi, you are a mystic.
No.
I was just going to say thank you very much, Sri Radha Govinda Devi Dasi. You always enlighten the platform with experiences and your devotional songs. This is amazing. Thank you. We hope to see you again soon. And our regards to your wonderful husband, County. Hare Krishna.
He's on Friday. He's giving class on Friday.
Okay. We shall try to be there.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Kavi, for that observation.
Yes,
So let's all devote to some meet now. Let us
Krishna, 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 Hare Hare,
Hare Ram,
Hare Ram,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hare Krishna, Radha Govinda Devi Dasi ki jai.